Tra-la-la! Captain Underpants, possibly the best superhero ever created. The first Captain Underpants book was released in 1997, and its 12th and final book was released in 2015, a staggering 18 years later. Throughout the years, the Captain Underpants books have been the subject of controversy. In 2012, the American Library Association stated that the Captain Underpants series were the most banned books of the year due to their insensitivity and crude humor. Despite all of that, it finally got its very first movie. Like any other movie that is based on novels, it takes elements and then changes them a bit, and we're going to be taking a look at those differences. Now let's get right into it. We're going to start at the beginning with Captain Underpants' origin. Underpanty World is a planet where everyone is a superpowered being. They all wear the typical underpants and a red cape with black polka dots on it. Here, we can see that the inhabitants of Underpanty World are just regular looking people with unique underwear. Speaking of underwear, since that's just their normal clothes, are they technically not wearing any underwear? Anyways, Captain Underpants' parents are seen to be of very high social status, and they are also wearing the superhero attire. In the book, they look like some middle-aged couple. As for the destruction of Underpanty World, evil aliens just destroy it because, well, they're evil. Here we can see it just self-destructs for no reason. Captain's adoptive parents are a lovely old couple instead of dolphins? Alrighty then. Next, we'll move on to the start of George and Harold's friendship. George and Harold are in the same classroom, and they both seem to just click with one word: Uranus. George and Harold were the only ones that saw the true humor in Uranus, and from then on, they were friends. The book version is a bit more complicated. Harold is a very shy and quiet kid that mostly keeps to himself, most likely due to his parents' divorce. He is constantly bullied, and he is scared for his life. His drawings were always there for him though. George is an extremely smart and wild child. He had just moved in next door to Harold's. On his way to his first day at a new school, he noticed a kid getting bullied by a group of bullies. He used his intelligence to save the kid, which turned out to be Harold, and both George and Harold got sent to detention simply because Krupp is evil. That's where George noticed that Harold liked to draw, and George told Harold that he was more of a writer, and so they became friends and started Treehouse Comics Inc. Mr. Fyde is an interesting character. He's the only teacher at Jerome Horwitz Elementary School that isn't mean to the students. However, he doesn't last for very long. Book Fyde resigns after he thinks he's gone insane after a series of very strange events, such as a bald guy flying out of a window, 2 kids being chased by abominable snowmen, and talking toilets eating all the teachers. Now that's crazy. In this situation, Mr. Krupp didn't want Fyde to leave, but Fyde just didn't care anymore. On the other hand, Movie Fyde is fired by Mr. Krupp because he wanted to spend time with his family instead of attending the invention convention.
He wanted to spend Saturday with his family, so I fired him. I'll find a replacement next week.
The Invention Convention is one I should mention. The Invention Convention is an annual event that the students actually look forward to. It's a time in these students' lives where they can actually be creative. George and Harold ruined one Invention Convention by gluing everyone to their seats. As a result, they were banned from participating, even attending the following convention. As an act of rebellion, they tampered with everyone's invention, except for Melvin's, because they didn't want him to tattle on them. Over here, we can see that the movie invention convention is something that seems to happen every Saturday, and students do not look forward to it at all. Melvin seems to be the only one that likes the invention convention, and he also seems to be the only one that created anything and everything. The Turbo Toilet 2000 is a terrifying tyrant. He is the main villain in one of the Captain Underpants comics. He was created as a result of George and Harold wanting to make copies of their comic on Melvin's invention, the Photoatomic Transomglobulating Electrofriendship-Plutonic Zanziptomizer, or the Patsy 2000. He is a sentient being that only desires the destruction of everything. However, Here he is just a Melvin invention that is used by Professor Poopy Pants and Melvin as a tool for the annihilation of laughter. Getting busted. George and Harold have gotten away with their pranks and mischief without getting caught, most of the time. However, there is a time when Mr. Krupp has solid evidence, and that evidence is used as leverage to punish George and Harold. In the movie, Melvin is the one that created a spy cam to catch George and Harold tampering with the Turbo Toilet 2000. As punishment, Mr. Krupp is going to put them in separate classes to end their friendship. Forever. In the book, Krupp has security cameras set up around the school, and they are finally caught setting up the disaster that is Jerome Horwood's big football game. As punishment, Krupp blackmails George and Harold by forcing them to do whatever he tells them. Otherwise, he will send the tape to the football team. There exists a weapon so powerful that can bring about the destruction of the earth and end all life as we know it if it gets into the wrong hands. To acquire such a device, you need to wait for 4 to 6 week shipping. Fortunately for George and Harold, 4 to 6 weeks passes by in about 4 to 6 seconds. They use it when Mr. Krupp blackmails George and Harold after he catches them in the middle of their shenanigans. There are clear and complicated instructions explaining how to use this tool of destruction. And they have to be discreet about it. They can't let Mr. Krupp know what they're about to do. Sounds wicked, no? In the movie, the Hypno Ring just happens to come in a cereal box as an extra goodie. It's already been confiscated by Mr. Krupp. To activate it, George uses his brain power to channel his commands onto Mr. Krupp, and he taps into some sort of unrestricted power, causing the whole school to experience telekinetic shockwaves. Whoa. Everyone's favorite mad scientist, Professor Pippy Peepy Poopy Pants. Oh boy, this guy went through quite a change. He's an incredibly intelligent scientist who desires positive change in the world through his inventions. He's excited to share his inventions with everyone else, but they all seem to ignore his creations to laugh at his silly name. His last resort is being a science teacher at Jerome Horwitz Elementary School, since you can always count on the sweetness and innocence of children. He shares his name with his new class, and, well, let's just say that the constant laughter directed at him caused him to go mad and try to change the world for the worse by changing everyone's name to be silly. Movie Poopy is Book Poopy's evil twin. This professor is named Pee-Pee Diarrhea Stain Poopy Pants Esquire. This Professor Poopy Pants cracked before becoming a science teacher. He was about to receive a Nobel Prize for his invention, but everyone just laughed at his name, and that was Poopy's turning point. He introduces himself to his new class as Professor P, since he doesn't want anyone to laugh at him anymore. Speaking of no one laughing at him anymore, his ultimate goal is the destruction of laughter all over the world. Now we all know that Captain Underpants is just Mr. Krupp who's been hypnotized to believe that he really is Captain Underpants. He doesn't really have any superpowers, and as far as anyone knows, he's just a crazy bald guy running around in his underwear. It's not until he's in a dire situation that he gets his superpowers. In the book, he's getting munched on by the deliriously dangerous, death-defying Dandelion of Doom. George and Harold decide that they need to give him some extra strength superpower juice that they stole from an alien spaceship as a last resort. They very reluctantly give it to him, and Captain Underpants becomes a true superpowered being. In the movie, Professor Poopy Pants sucks up Captain Underpants with the Turbo Toilet 2000. Inside this toilet resides the toxic sludge that is cafeteria food. Captain Underpants sucked in some of this sludge, and that's what gave him his powers. On a completely unrelated note, since he's swimming around in this stuff, shouldn't he have been turned back into Mr. Krupp? Perhaps the biggest change is Mr. Krupp himself. If you read all of the Captain Underpants books, you'll know that he is the most heartless, soulless person to ever have existed. The only people he cares about are himself and his nephew Kipper. We also know that he's Captain Underpants. or at least he was. In his final battle, something mysterious happened, and he lost his powers and the hypnosis that caused him to change between the Captain and Krupp. He returned to being the super evil principal he's always been, and will continue to be. However, movie Krupp goes against his own philosophy. After Mr. Krupp supposedly loses his powers and his Captain hypnosis, he changes his attitude and is a bit nicer. He returns George and Harold's comics, and he even admits that they were a bit funny. That is something that he would never ever do, even if George and Harold hypnotized him and told him to say it. So there you have it, those were the major changes between the Captain Underpants novels and the film. I want to end this by saying that just because something is different, doesn't mean it's not as good. Do I think this movie was good? I think so, and if you enjoyed the Captain Underpants books, then you should check this movie out. Anywho, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to click that like button, and if you did not enjoy the video, feel free to click that dislike button. Subscribe if you wish to see future content. I hope to see you all in the next one.